How about best and worst part of being one of five boys?
Latchkey kid. One of five boys is different than being the youngest of that. You know, my parents have been through it. My oldest brother's, you know, he's a good 15 plus years older than me. And so Bill, Stuart, Scott, Colin, and then myself. And so Colin and I were only 2 years apart, but the rest of my brothers were, you know, much bigger. So my parents, my mom, you know, she was a working mom. My dad, he had a lot of business in Florida. He was a land developer, so he was always sort of popping around. And then my mom, she was a mayor of my town, and then she worked for the State Department as the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs and liaison with state and local government officials. See, I locked eyes when I said that for you, because she made me memorize basically that statement if I ever wanted to travel with her. Like, she's tough, and she carried that with her. But, you know, she always had a chip on her shoulder, and she's, you know, forever, you know, she, you know, rest her soul. She passed away, you know, 2+ years ago. But she was always the mayor of Kensington. You know, 13 years as the mayor of our town where I grew up. And she was one of those people who just had the ability to always feel like when you were there in her presence. But she could move easily through a conversation of talking about, you know, her travels with my dad and living in Karachi to all the travel that she was lucky enough to take me on as a young kid. Because my brothers had kind of moved on. I was sort of the easy one that they needed a babysitter for. So she used to make me travel with her when she worked for the State Department. So I had the ability to go down and meet all these kids from all over the country that would be in the, you know, kind of the teenage, the group that they had for kids. And it really taught me, it was the first experience that taught me how to walk up to someone and stick my hand out and look them in the eye and just go, "Hi, my name's Kevin Plank. It's very nice to meet you," which is something I still do to this day.
Sophomore year, I believe you fail 2 classes in high school. Got into a drunken brawl, from what I understand. What's going on in your life then, and what happens from there?
Yeah, if my transcript is showing up in B-roll right now, we're gonna have a problem, Kevin. But no, I actually found my high school transcript, and I was like, wow, this would be such a great story. And I'm like, actually, no one should ever see this and know that you could do this poorly in school and actually do something other than ending up in a penitentiary somewhere.
Why do you think you didn't do well in school?
Probably didn't apply myself. I really grew up with this idea of I wanted to play ball. You know, I wanted to go play major college football. You know, I grew up with Sports Illustrated covers of Tony Dorsett running out from the cheerleaders at Pitt and being like celebrating. I loved the idea of being a gladiator in an arena, and I thought it was the highest high. I thought it was something that everybody wanted to do. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I was probably a pretty immature 14 or 15, and you know, it led to some life lessons. It was pretty good time to get your head straightened out when it gets kicked in.
Because it was Georgetown High School.
Yeah, I went to Georgetown Prep.
Versus the actually Georgetown University football team,
Yeah,
right?
it was their Founders Day that they had at Georgetown University. But they had like open kegs of free beers, and so I was 15 years old, and we you know, had too many beers and got in trouble and learned a life lesson that had me, leave Georgetown Prep for a better place called St. John's in Washington, D.C., and one of the hardest things that I ever had to do, but one of those lessons that really helped shape me.
What does your mom say when you tell her you think you're getting kicked out and she wants to go talk to the father to try and convince him to let you stay?
I remember going to see this guy, Father Roach, who was the president of the school, the head priest, and you know, he sat down and just said, you know, "I'm here to tell you that we're going to be dismissing your son from Georgetown Preparatory School." And my mother was sort of like, "What does this mean? How can this happen? I put 4 boys ahead of them before you." And then he sort of said, "I'm sorry, but, you know, our decision is final." And my mother says to the priest, she says, "You know, my gosh, even Peter had 3 chances." At which point I was sort of like, there's no way he's letting me back in. And I'm like, before he starts telling her the other 2 chances that I'd probably already blown, like, "Mom, let's just get out of here." So go home, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the worst day of my life. And you know, by the time I got home, I'd had a call from the head coach at St. John's, and I was thinking, you know, what happens to me now? Do I go to, do I have to start going to work? Do I, you know, like, life is over. And they called me, invited me to go join St. John's, and I'm like, "Coach, can you get me?" And he's like, "We'll get you in." So I'll never forget my dad walking in the door that night, and you know, My mom like, let me talk to Dad. So he walks in, I just go, okay, Dad. I got some bad news, but I got some good news. I go, the bad news, like, so I'm not gonna go to prep anymore, but St. John's called and it's like half the tuition, so making the family money, we're helping us out.
How do you receive that?
Not well. But going there, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It was a wake-up call that I needed in life, and I'm really proud of what that place means.
I think high school was a 5-year experience for you. Your mom had said the last year of high school, which was where you spent a year somewhere else, was like paying for you to go to prison, I believe. But you mentioned St. John's being a formative experience. How so?
Yeah, I mean, collectively 10 years between high school and college. That was my, they call them doctors usually, but it was
character building.
That's right. I definitely had plenty of character building. But it was the lesson of moving from there, from Georgetown Prep to St. John's, and then ultimately realizing that I still need a little more time. I was young when I graduated high school. I was only 17 years old. And I decided to go to prep school, which is a place called Fork Union Military Academy, which is a pretty extraordinary place in and of itself.
How so?
It was this really special place, about 30 miles outside of Charlottesville, Fork Union, Virginia. And it drew kids from all over the country and with some of the best talent. If you went to junior college, you'd burn your eligibility. So going here, you could basically get yourself like another year of high school. Give you a chance to take your SATs. A lot of guys went there to get their boards, get their grades up. Some guys went there to get better looks. I was like some combination of all three. And I thought it'd be a good year for me. My mother, she called it Lorton, which is the big penitentiary in D.C.
Why?
She called it Lorton with tuition. So that was basically where it was, because I sent her a holiday card that I had. It was a picture of Fork Union, and I drew jail bars on it. And I had a little picture of me like this, and I can't draw, and it just said, "Get me out of here." was my postcard.
So did you not like it at the time?
I mean, nobody likes going to a military school, at 17 going on 18 years old when I started it. It was my decision. I wanted to go. I mean, I still had this dream if I wanted to play major college football.
And that was a step that
yeah,
you
I
needed
mean,
to take
Fork Union is a really special place. So the year that I went to Fork Union, there was, and it's really a large part of the reason that Under Armour started to begin with. There was 135 guys on our class, so a one-year prep school class. Guys went there because they were, all conference, all Met, all state, whatever the designation. It's like a lot of good football players. And I say we had a really special class. The coach realized he had too many people, so he said he had to weed this out. And so the decision was, when we started August 8th, and practice camp was going to go 3 weeks, so to the 29th. So we ran 3 weeks of 3-day practices. So by the end of 3 days, there were about 65 of us left in that class. So of the 65, though, what was unique is 23 of them wound up going on to sign Division I scholarships. I walked on at Maryland, so I wasn't part of that 23. Of the 23, 13 got drafted. 4 of them were first-round draft picks. One guy won the Heisman Trophy in Eddie George. But there was something really special about the guys that stayed and that made it and that went through. And there's like a brotherhood and a bond that still, of course, exists and lives to this day. And it was that relationship from Fork Union that, again, was a really key aspect of why Under Armour, exists today.